Uzi, how are you?
I'm doing well. Just watching the FOMC meeting, but got a notification Best Space on X is live. So I dropped that immediately.
Did you tell Jay Powell that you have to go? You have to see. You have to go see about a guy. That's so funny. You probably don't even know what movie I'm referencing. Have you seen Good Will Hunting?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How do you like them apples?
That's one of my favorite scenes when he's telling his story about how he was at a baseball game and it was like a big game. It was just before their friends entered. He's like, I gotta go see about a girl. You remember that scene?
Yeah, I also remember. I mean, Robin Williams was awesome in that film. R.I.P.
Yeah, amazing. You also remember, yeah, exactly. All right, let's get started. I can't believe YouTube is working right now. That's crazy. Like last minute solutions. If YouTube folks could please let me know if, yeah, it is working. Okay, great. Perfect. Tesla up 5.4%. Uzi, what did you think of the FOMC meeting so far? I listened to the first half hour of it.
It's hard to listen to that and not be political or conspiratorial. So
Let's address that, because there was actually last night there was a space and somebody was being conspiratorial again, and let's kind of go through that real quick. So why do you think it's conspiratorial?
Well, I only caught parts of it, but immigration, and then American labor. But he was aware of that.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like everything is going according to how they forecasted it, right? Unemployment number ticked up a little bit, he said, but it's still below. It's still tight. It's not overheating just yet, but it's not overheating anymore. But it's still on the tighter side. I think they're looking for maybe a 4.2% type of unemployment rate. What would you do if you were them right now?
If I were them, I'd probably cut rates right now. That's because I want my stocks to go up, so I'm a little biased. But yeah, I do think it would be like, I think part of it is it's the election timing too, and I think that's a central part where all these institutions in the United States are becoming politicized, and so you'd view them through a tribal lens, which is really bad for our society.
Okay. Luce, welcome back. I know you had a question about cameras. I gave you an answer, and then you had a series of answers I didn't read. So, are you not satisfied
It's
with
more.
the answer?
Thanks for letting me speak. It's more than 10 words. Can I? Because it's impossible with 10 words. Okay, I will just go. So basically, the problem is that with the big pillar cameras that are installed now, there are situations in which the driver can see more than the cameras. What does happens? So what it happens is that when you want to train the AI, basically it will train, if you don't cure the data, it will train in human actions that cameras can't see. Like if in an intersection, okay, I have more visibility and want to brake because, in my opinion, it's getting too close to another car, and in that angle the camera cannot see me, they cannot see the reason why I brake, and then that action goes on training the AI, then a problem happens, because now the AI says, okay, he brake, what's the reason? I cannot see why. And it can.
Can I reword it and we can ask Omar?
Yeah,
Omar,
sure. English
Luce
is
is
not my
saying,
first language, so I'm
I gotcha.
sorry if it's not.
No, it's okay. I think your English is just fine. I think just maybe try to talk to ChatGPT before coming up and say, can you say this in 10 words? Because the way I would say it is, the difference, like point of view difference between where the cameras are and where the human is seeing could be clouding the human feedback loop. Omar, what do you think about what Lou said?
Yeah, I'm not concerned. The cameras have pretty much a 360-degree view around the car. So there's not really that much that they can't see.
Yeah, so that's true. But so first of all, now you need to work on curating the data, because you cannot train on everything. Like you cannot let the AI train on stuff like that is seemingly for no reason. That happens for seemingly for no reason. Secondly, the power of training AI will be really multiplied if it can train on everything. Like you don't need to cure anything, because it sees more than a human. So for me, it's a very big short sight. You understand what I mean?
Well,
And
I don't think what you're saying really matches up with, deep learning very much. There's no situation where you just dump data in there without curating it. And there's not some big issue where a lot of the clips are useless because you can't see what's happening. The data set they use to train the model is highly curated. So what they show it, they don't just throw random stuff in there. They pick very carefully. So there's no, camera angle where they throw some more cameras on there and they can just dump a bunch of data into the model. They're very specifically showing it stuff that reflects good driving behaviors.
All right. Thanks, Omar. Welcome to the space. How are you doing?
Well, I stayed up really late last night and I just woke up 5 minutes ago and came into the space.
That's awesome. That's cool. Well, thank you for joining. So tomorrow is the shareholder meeting. Is the voting closed at this point, Omar?
No, you can actually vote at the meeting in person if you're there. But the online voting will probably close today, yeah.
Okay. Flexity, did you have anything to say?
Yeah, actually had news for Elon's sales during 2021 and 2022 of the shares. He's actually being sued for 8.5 billion in Delaware because they are alleging that he was insider trading, which is a bogus charge, obviously. But again, he's being sued.
Yeah. He's being sued left and right now. Omar, any comments on the recent lawsuits?
Are there some new ones?
I think there's one where he got sued for harassment, sexual harassment, I think, by former SpaceX employees.
Oh, well, I mean, I think the court will probably find out the truth if there's any merit to it or not. But people typically, file a lot of lawsuits, some of them meritless. So I obviously can't comment on the specific allegations as I don't have any information on them.
Yeah. Flexity?
Yeah, I think Omar didn't see the news today. Anyways, Omar, it was a lawsuit from a retail investor saying that Elon and Kimball knew that car deliveries were going to fall in 2023. So they started selling their shares in 2022. So for the X deal, they sold the shares. So they are alleging that it is insider trading instead.
Yeah, that's not insider trading. Insider trading is when, you just make a trade. I mean, first of all, like there's very specific periods where you can sell as an executive. It's all very closely controlled. You can't just go and sell shares. Obviously, in the case of the X purchase, they were legally ordered to complete the purchase. So I think it's kind of hard to argue that it was insider trading when a court forced them to do it, right? So can a court force you to do insider trading? No. So, I mean, people file all kinds of lawsuits. 90% of them are bullshit and they just end up getting dismissed.
Okay. Ipatio.
Hello, everyone. Just wanted to ask Omar, first of all, great FSD videos. And if you think that FSD works equally well across the US and Canada at this moment.
I mean, there's definitely variations in performance from place to place, but yeah, generally it just works anywhere. Not only just in the US, they took it to Germany too. And it was doing roundabouts in Germany. It's working in China too, from what I understand. So, yeah, they're really designing a system that can work anywhere.
Jimmy.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Jimmy, if you're going to continue to troll the people in the space, like I don't find this funny at all.
What did I do right now?
I will block you, and I won't unblock you. Okay.
That's up to you, but I haven't done anything. What are you talking about? I'm guilty until proven innocent for you. What's going on?
I've been very patient with you. I don't find any of their actions funny. They get really
I haven't
old.
said anything in this space for 2 days. Wasn't even in this space yesterday. I got kicked down. I wasn't able to come back up.
Okay, so from now on, you won't be on the speaker boards. If you request to speak, I will kick you out of the space. All right. Tesla stock is up 6% today. Down to 5% now, $179 per share. $560 billion market cap, 45 PE ratio. Omar, what do you make of today's price action? The Fed, I only listened to the first half hour of the conference. I think they did kind of comment on employment market. This is what I was watching. The employment market kind of loosening a little bit. So they switched from overheating. He said it's not overheating, but it's still tight. So that means they will, like, this is exactly what I was expecting. I think, will keep the rates higher for longer. Further, the median on the dot plot, the median expectation is only for one rate cut this year. So I thought that was also interesting. And I believe, I will go back and review it again, but I believe somebody asked about a longer run interest rate ticking up again. So that would be also material as well. So this is, I think, even though the markets are reacting very positively to this, especially the CPI number that came out this morning was very positive. Apple up 6%, Nvidia up 4% today. Uber, a bunch of other tech stocks are up. Oil stocks are down. Consumer defensives are down. So it's a very risk-on kind of day. The CPI came
if you
in,
look
but
at
that the Fed will want to see more favorable inflation data. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you look at the progression of their expectations, it's definitely a case where they keep penciling in fewer and fewer rate cuts. I think before they were at 2, now they're at 1. So the market reaction's a little puzzling. unless maybe the market expected that they would actually have no cuts this year, given the tightness we're seeing in the labor market. So, the estimates are definitely trending in a bad direction, trending towards less rate cuts. But that's the thing about these estimations, they're always wrong. People were a little excited before. Something could happen that softens the labor market or softens inflation and makes things run the other way. But right now, I'm not really seeing what that is. I'm just seeing really a lot of factors that are, potentially making the situation worse. So we really need a rate cut for Tesla. That is kind of like the S&P 500 inclusion event of this cycle in Tesla, in my opinion. And everybody knows it's coming, but right now it's looking like we are going to see 1 or 0 this year. I wouldn't be surprised to see it, revised down to 0 at a further meeting if the labor market remains tight.
I also wanted to express my confusion with the 5% move because when I was waking up, I saw the CAFE report. I saw Morgan Stanley say Tesla could go to 310. I also saw Morgan Stanley talk about the phone and then the rates. So do we think it's the rates that's really driving the movement?
No, I think it's the CPI number. I mean, the overall market. I mean, look at all the tech stock. Nasdaq up 2%, more than 2%, and Tesla has a higher beta, obviously, versus the indices. So the CPI number came in much lower than expected today. CPI headline figure was 0.0% versus expected 0.1, and the prior figure was 0.3, and the core CPI was 0.16%. Almost half of what was expected, 0.3%. So that's really what's moving these stocks right now. I didn't look at the Ark Invest forecast. I don't think they moved this stock that much, but we can talk about it if you guys want. I didn't see the Morgan Stanley.
Actually, I did see a pretty significant after-hours move between pre and post them announcing that. So it's possible it may have had some effect. I think the stock was down a little bit in overnight trading before that, and then once it came out, you saw it start to turn around. So that could probably be a factor, but I'd guess that the good CPI reading is probably more of a factor driving price action than ARK.
Complexity.
Yeah, man. Did you see that the longer term forecast for the longer term rates was at a median at its highest was 3.75 and at its lowest was 2.25, and Powell just said that they aren't going to have rates at the pre-COVID level. What do you think about that?
Do you have a post about this?
Yeah, I'll share the dot plot.
Okay, can you reply to this space with your and I'll look at this specific thing you asked. In the meantime, Ken, welcome. I saw your comment on YouTube live chat. Would you like to repeat it here for everyone?
Sure. Just by the very nature of Elon's position as CEO of Tesla, any type of trading he does is going to be scrutinized as insider trading. That's why the SEC has so many rules regarding what he can and can't do on the trading front. He can trade by predetermined plan. He can't trade in the blackout periods. He has so many days in order to disclose his actual trades that are in the predetermined plan and are not on a predetermined plan. So unless he's really trading in the blackout periods, this is going to be a suit that's not going to go anywhere. And the suit is a couple of weeks old, and I do believe it was for $7 billion. So I don't really expect it to go very far, although I haven't personally reviewed the suit, but just from what I understand on Yahoo articles, I don't hold a lot of stock in it. And it's against him personally. It's not against Tesla.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Thank you. Ipatio.
Yeah, because you mentioned Cathy Wood and Ark Invest assessment or estimation prognostication, however it's called, that came out today, and if it played a role in the movement, the stock movement. I was just wondering if you think, as with back in 2018 and 19, when Kathy was talking about 10 or 20x of if you think that it can happen again now.
Do I think the stock can 10x? Is that the question?
Yeah, I mean, and more specifically for the reasons she mentions.
I didn't read her report.
Yeah, okay, but the main points are Autonomy and Optimus. Yep, so.
Yeah, the stock can 10x in time with Robotaxi and Autonomous. Thank you. Machine.
While I agree with that sentiment, I would like to say Kathy Woods and Ark are terrible investors. If you go look at their 5-year performance, they're at, for Ark K, their main fund, at 6% return. The NASDAQ 100 QQQ, if you just buy that in fund, you would have had 160% return. I would argue 5 years is a long enough period of time that people would expect to have some significant returns. And it's not necessarily just about Kathy's ability to pick companies. It's their ability to time their trading. You know, they're trading in and out of stocks all the time. And for what? They suck at it. They sold NVIDIA in October 2022. And I'm supposed to think these people are visionaries. Just buy index funds, people. Don't rely on Kathy Wood for analysis on Tesla. The reason she said Tesla was going to 10x in 2018 and 2019 was because of robotaxis. And then it did 10x. It wasn't because of robotaxis. She just got lucky. And part of her investment was just getting lucky on Tesla. If you took Tesla out of her returns, they would be even worse.
So, what percentage of Tesla's appreciation was due to their autonomy technology, and how much of it was due to electric vehicles?
At least 90% for electric vehicles.
So, you think that the electric vehicle business for Tesla today is worth about $450 billion or so, or more?
Today, no. In 2020, most of that valuation was on the unexpected performance and margins for the company. And this going to 20 million vehicles a year. And I believe most of that was what was valued into the stock. You can argue, if you want, that a certain portion was robotaxi hype, and then prove to you, I guess, that Kathy Woods was right because there was some hype built into Tesla stock about robotaxis in 2021, like 30%. Oh, okay. Still, it didn't 10x because of robotaxis. You could say it 2x'd because of robotaxis. And meanwhile, her funds sucked outside of that. Stop listening to Kathy Woods. I find from a thought leader, I guess.
Yeah,
but
I agree with you. I agree with your sentence. And it's shocking to me that people still pay attention to Ark Invest. And I mean, all you have to do is look at their ETF. Look at how many of their calls played out and how many of their calls did not play out. And like Machine said, I mean, this is what I used to do in my last job. I used to analyze investment managers. Her portfolio returns, the composition of her portfolio, the risks she takes on. And 5 years is definitely a long enough period. Usually, asset managers get maybe 3 years if they're lucky to prove themselves. So 5 years is more than enough. And I would do the same thing that Machine did, which is take out Tesla, which clearly is a one-off in the portfolio. Look at the rest. And if she was actually skillful you would see it in those returns as well. So, Machine.
I fully agree. And I would add for all the listeners in this space, I would do that for yourselves and for all your favorite Tesla accounts you love to follow because they made so much money on Tesla. How good are these investors outside of Tesla? This is called confirmation bias, survivorship bias. You found people who, did a good job investing, made a bunch of money on Tesla, and now you're going to trust them for everything else. It could have just been a one-off. And so I'd be very careful. And I try to now run myself kind of like a little investment fund. And I would say it's definitely difficult. And am I doing better than the NASDAQ by itself? Maybe, maybe not. It's not clear. But I would just say Kathy has way underperformed index funds. She's not like kind of close. And so it's she's picking these companies and maybe she's picking some bad ones, but she's also not patient with her trades. And she's just buying companies left and right. And her timing is all bad too. So it's really two things. And so I just take that away and say, why are we listening to her at all? Like we all can model out robotaxis. This is not that innovative.
Well, I mean, Ark Invest obviously has had terrible performance. Nobody's going to argue with that. But I don't think it's accurate to say that the EV business is worth $513 billion and FSD is just some small part of that. I mean, FSD and autopilot are really a core part of the product. And I don't think it takes a robotaxi for the market to start to value some of that potential. They're not necessarily going to give you trillions of dollars before it happens, but I believe it's somewhere in the valuation. So, I mean, the only reason people listen to Ark Invest is because of that one call on Tesla. And that one successful call on Tesla has been the catalyst to really a lot of people losing money in their funds because that was kind of the only good idea they've ever had. They missed Nvidia, they missed a ton of stuff, and they've just completely underperformed. So, people really said, they said back then, oh, we think Tesla is going to be, you know, thousands of dollars is our price target. Everyone said these guys are nuts. And then that's what actually happened. So everyone said, oh, maybe they're not so nuts. But, as Machine said, it was really kind of, they hit a home run on that one, but not necessarily a fund you want to be buying, definitely.
Uzi.
Yeah, I like her as a person. I love her voice. She sounds like a therapist or something, but she does trade like a meme trader. Her liquidity is sort of a problem. Like you see every purchase, like where people are posting on X, she's always selling and buying something else. And I'm like, where's the money coming from? And I assume she's just taking losses or something.
Okay, we don't have to dwell on this. Machine, what did you think of the CPI read and the Fed meeting?
I mean, I thought the read was good. It came under expectations. When I listened to some of the Fed call the first half hour, he seemed slightly positive that this was the first sort of report that they needed to see, but they need to see more of it to, eventually lower rates. So I still don't think doesn't necessarily mean anything's happening anytime soon. But then it seemed like the market, not based on those comments, but just on the initial report of this morning on inflation, that they started pricing in again rate cuts this year. And I don't think he indicated that. Although I forget what the dot plot said. The dot plot may have.
It's only one median
one.
dot plot is only one cut this year.
So again, I think the market is slightly overreacting
I
to
think
this.
so too.
Yeah.
I think so too. Yeah, I saw I watched the CME Fed Watch tool in the morning after the CPI report, and the chances of a July cut And let's see what happened after the conference. It's now back down to 9% again for July. And then for December, end of the year, the markets expect somewhere closer to 500 basis points. So the market expects 2 rate cuts by year end, but the median dot plot is only 1. So there's again a mismatch between what the market is expecting and what the Fed is indicating. Interesting times. Gianni.
Hey guys, I just want to give a little love to Kathy Wood. And number one, Warren Buffett says you only have to be right once, and she was right. And she was right more than once, because they called NVIDIA over 10 years ago. James Wang, who used to be with their group, was a former NVIDIA employee, and they were pounding the table on GPUs like at least 6 or 7 years ago, and they did 100x on NVIDIA. And they got out.
Gianni, this is again, like, you're making a mistake of kind of cherry picking here. She has a portfolio. She has several ETFs with different stocks, and the portfolio analysis should consider the entire decision, like entire portfolio. You can't just look at one call. A second, you mentioned NVIDIA. I think she sold there early on too. So this is a portfolio manager, portfolio analysis. Okay. I understand maybe you guys have a personal connection, maybe you have an investment in Ark Invest or what have you. But
I have no investment.
You clearly don't have any experience in portfolio performance analysis, do you?
No, but I beat the
thank
markets
you.
for the last. I beat the markets for the last.
Machine.
Well, maybe you did beat the markets for the last 15 years, but Kathy Wood didn't. So I don't know. Maybe you should pimp yourself, not him.
Yeah, we need to move on. This is really close. Danny.
Hey guys, how does the Tesla profit margin look like in China, like compared to US maybe?
Very low.
Well, China's costs are lower, but also ASPs are lower too. So, and the FSD take rate is very small over there, if anything. Machine, would you want to add anything to that?
No, I mean, if they were just exporting from Shanghai, then obviously they would have probably the best margins outside of transport costs. But inside China, yeah, it's just not the high enough ASPs. There's too much competition pressure.
Yeah. Bull 2035.
Yeah, I have a technical question. Earlier, I think we mentioned edge cases, a roundabout Omar mentioned, and let's say there's a certain turn that a car can't make, a Tesla can't make. Is Tesla going back and hard coding any of these edge case fixes, or is it just running it through the training model more and more until it gets it right?
Omar?
Yeah, there's no hard coding. The idea is that if you show examples to the model, it should be able to generalize even to situations that aren't in the training set, and it does. So also on a separate note, 2 interesting stories that I saw last night is the EU putting tariffs of as much as 38% on Chinese automakers. They actually have a separate tariff applied per brand on top of the existing 10% tariff they have. And China actually has a 15% tariff on imports of European cars, but they're likely to retaliate. And another interesting story, which Elon commented on, is that there was a Waymo recall related to a crash with a telephone pole in Phoenix. And it's kind of an interesting look at what the problem with HD maps is.
Flexity.
Yeah. So Omar actually brought up the EU tariffs. I was just going to mention that BYD is being taxed at 17%. And from the details that I have found for China, Tesla received substantially less subsidies in comparison to BYD. So we would probably either see no tariff, or we would see no additional tariff on top of the 10% pre-existing one, as I would say. So we would probably get at least a 10% tariff.
But of course, Tesla also has local production of the Model Y in Germany. So that's going to be a boost to Giga Berlin for sure if they have an additional tariff on Chinese cars. I'm not sure if the Model 3 imported from Shanghai will be affected. It could, but I haven't seen the tariff rate for Tesla laid out specifically. They've certainly been getting a lot less subsidies, but it is possible that you could also redirect some Model 3 from California to EU countries if that tariff turned out to be prohibitive.
Bull 2035.
Yeah, so Omar, since it's all being done through training, is there anything that prevents Tesla from taking this technology and applying it to drones and other things that move both inside and outside?
Well, that's what they're doing. They're building a humanoid robot. Obviously, it's a very different kind of model for a humanoid robot. I think a lot of the same technologies could also be used to train a drone that can fly autonomously through the city. But, flying a drone is very easy. You don't need a lot of like object detection. You just sort of go up high enough and then you can go any direction you want. Um, so, some vision-based processing may be helpful, but I mean, you could definitely get a fully autonomous drone much, much more quickly using the same stack than an autonomous car.
Jeannie, how'd you make it up here again?
Magic, because I'm a Tesla soldier, and you're a kind person who lets me back up. Am I right,
Well,
guys?
Well, the thing is, the topic actually warrants your presence right now. What do you think about these tariffs?
By the EU or the US?
The EU to Chinese imports.
Oh, right. Well, they were planning. If you actually read the European Commission documents the last 2.5 years, if you guys read someone who works there is called a guy called I think his name is Luke Kelly. He's an Irish guy who works for the European Commission. They've been preparing protection measurements against cheap Chinese EVs, and they also worked with other countries. It's also one of the reasons why Turkey implemented the exact same tariff at the exact same time. In fact, the foreign minister Hakan Fidan went to China to announce that they're going to use tariffs. So it's a lot like their minimum income tax. They want all the countries to basically follow. A part of their green policy is that tariffs are actually part of their green agenda, so that different areas will be able to manufacture locally. And so if the question is, will it improve the position of EVs in Europe? Well, I think that's irrelevant. The issue is that the EU believes that it can subsidize EU production within its borders and actually have more EVs on the road with European companies with its own quality controls, including, of course, Chinese companies who go to the European Union and manufacture there. And they've been pushing these subsidies to support Chinese companies investing in the EU. For example, they spend billions in Poland and Hungary and other countries to help subsidize infrastructure projects that would make those areas more incentivized for European Chinese companies to go to build factories there, improve bridges, highways, railroads, and so forth. It's a part of their overall scheme, and most of this manufacturing will take place in Eastern Europe, which is a desperate need for more manufacturing. So I don't know if it's a moral question you're asking, whether tariffs are good, but the European Union has a policy to have tariffs over a period of time.
Thank you.
They've been talking about it for a long time. Yeah.
Omar, I thought it was interesting that different automakers have different tariff levels, quite substantially too. Like SAIC has 30-something%, whereas BYD got 17%. And it says something like, I kind of briefly looked at it. It says something like differences in what data they share. What data are they
Yeah.
talking about?
Well, they're talking about the cooperation with the investigation. So we've obviously seen President Biden do 100% unilateral tariff on the imports of EVs on top of the existing tariffs. In the EU, they had a 10% tariff. Now it's as high as 48% for SAIC. And that's because they didn't work with investigators. They didn't provide information to help them determine the level of subsidies that we're actually seeing here. If you look at what they're saying, well, this is a threat to our industry that we have so many battery electric cars being brought in. But they also said that, let me get the exact quote here. So they said that basically there was extensive evidence of subsidies that they found between the Chinese government and these firms. They said that the car makers, as well as their suppliers, received subsidized loans, tax breaks, and cheap land that was way below market pricing, according to officials. In addition, the Chinese federal and state governments have been placing lots of orders of these cars, helping keep these car makers afloat. So, all this sort of stuff in China, there's obviously a lot of government funding going into sort of birthing these Tesla competitors. And honestly, it really kind of highlights how Tesla really stands alone, right? The argument is, oh, okay, anybody can make EVs. But you look at the legacy automakers, they've completely failed to make EVs profitably. You look at the Chinese automakers, most of them aren't profitable, even with all these subsidies. And, BYD and Li Auto, I think, are profitable, but they're really getting a lot of help from the government, right? So take everything into a vacuum, and what is the real long-term competitiveness of these firms? It seems pretty clear that there's going to be, some consolidation in China, and they'll probably put some retaliatory tariff, but a large tariff in the EU as well as the United States, it is going to slow down exports of Chinese electric cars somewhat, unless they figure out a way to get around it.
Inflexible.
Yeah. So the base tariff was 21%, but anyways, I just read another article. The EU Commissioner for Trade has said that Tesla is making the case for lower tariffs for them specifically, and the European Commission is currently examining whether Tesla should have lower duties on their cars. So they are under investigation right now.
I
Thank
mean,
you.
even if they put a tariff on the Model 3, Tesla's going to be a winner here because the locally produced Model Y is going to be competing against Chinese EVs, which do have the tariff. So this is overall, and again, I'm against tariffs. I think definitely free trade is great. Protectionism is not great. But when you have a situation where a state government is subsidizing and distorting the market, unfairly giving local producers an advantage that European producers don't have, right? I mean, American and European companies aren't being given cheap land and loans and huge orders from the government. So in those cases, a tariff can actually even the playing field by accounting for the state aid that that the foreign firms are not getting. So it could be justified in that sense.
Danny.
How long has China put tariffs on the U.S. cars exports to China?
A long time. Yeah, we were talking about tariffs back in, man,
The
2017,
90s, the
2018.
early 90s
Yeah.
is when the tariffs came into place. The
There you
80s,
go.
they didn't have tariffs.
I mean, the first Model S and Model X's that Tesla sent over there, we were talking about tariffs again.
No, the tariffs against China, against American imports into China have been around for a very long time.
Yeah.
The
Jimmy, are you
tariffs are the reason
concerned?
Giga Shanghai was built.
Right. Jimmy, are you concerned that there seems to be a tariff arms race right now?
Well, yes, there is a arms race pushed by the EU, especially to be WTO compliant for all things, including tax, including EV tariffs. But the objective here, guys, is to create an equal playing field. And there has been a lot of unfairness across the world because some countries thought that they didn't have to play by the rules. And the normalization of the international order, including, of course, corporate affairs, I think is a very fair way of doing this. Tariffs are one. I just posted a link on top of it's in the comments, I guess. It explains the rationale for doing this, and the rationale makes a lot of sense. to say it's an arms race where it's unfair, it assumes that the European Union will get some kind of unfair advantage by going first and pushing for more tariffs. And if anything, they were one of the last to push for tariffs, because as you just said, China has had tariffs for a much longer period of time. USA has had tariffs for a much longer period of time. The European Commission did not push for tariffs until very recently. And that is only because of the need for increasing local battery and EV production.
Chansu.
Two quick questions. Do you guys think Tesla knew about the EU tariffs before we did?
Yes, they were informed. According to that policy paper in the comments, all member states of the EU were informed about the anti-subsidy investigation and the potential for these tariffs. So that would include companies that are manufacturing within the European Union.
If so, then do you think Tesla can just shift the new compact models that's built in Model Y production lines to Berlin as soon as possible?
Seems like more of an Omar question.
Well, there is no production line to move yet, right? They have existing 3 and Y production lines in both locations. And they've already announced that they're going to make it in Berlin, so nothing to worry about there.
Sergey.
Hi. I actually work at the European Commission for the part for DG Comp, which is DG Competition, and we've
So
been.
you passed these tariffs?
No, but I'm just a software developer. I don't actually know much about the business. So how Omar explained it, I think you understood it pretty well. But that instrument is actually called foreign subsidies. So they're investigating the unfair foreign subsidies in theory. But yeah, I don't know much about their
everybody
business
knew
part
this
or.
was coming. They've been investigating for quite some time, and this was very predictable what the outcome of the investigation would be. We didn't maybe know the exact amounts of the tariff, but it was pretty clear that I don't think anyone can doubt that there is foreign subsidies happening here, and the tariff is the remedy they have in their toolbox for that.
But it's a quite recent thing. I think we went live with the foreign subsidies instrument like last year or something. Yeah,
right.
It's what they implemented quite recently. But on a related note, I was in Shenzhen like 3 months ago, and all taxis and all buses there were BYD. So yeah, it's their local company, but yeah, still, it was quite impressive to see that many of them.
Thank you. Dennis.
Hey guys, thank you. So I have a question about Optimus. I was arguing with a friend who is very much against Tesla, and he made a point I wasn't able basically to back up, and that's why I want to ask the question. Basically, it's about how, since Tesla needed so much data, like 5 million cars to solve FSD, how they're going to be able to solve the Optimus with neural network, like how much data they would need to solve that, even though they're going to be using the base of FSD, still how they would manage to have that kind of volume to solve Optimus.
Omar.
Well, right now they're using teleoperation to collect data. So they have the person actually wear a VR rig and a suit, and they capture their motion. I don't think that's really going to scale to the level of data collection they need. But eventually you have the robots starting to go and perform tasks on their own, and you can collect data from that. So the answer is virtual reality and motion capture today. In the future, question mark. We don't really know, but they probably need something that scales a little bit better. Unless they sort of commercialize the VR rig and they said, hey, we're selling Optimus and it comes with this VR motion capture suit and you can do sort of remote control as a first application. That could then help them generate a lot of training data to train the models. But yeah, just like with FSD, the model's trained on humans driving. So with Optimus, just like the model's trained on humans driving, the robot is trained on humans driving the robot, doing actions using the robot body.
Machine, anything to add?
Yeah, I think it's a good question.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say that too. It's a really good question. Very good question. It's
so
one
I
of the better
think-
questions we've had in a while. And because of that, because of Dennis's question, I'm increasing the word limit on Optimus questions to 11. You can now use 11 words to ask an Optimus question. Machine, go ahead.
So number one, Optimus doesn't have to be as accurate as FSD. So the scaling laws of increasing amount of data to get an increasing accuracy, FSD now, if it was Optimus, that would be good enough to be a product, at 99%. Of course, you want it to get better than that, but that's already good enough for Optimus. So you're going to need much less data just in that terms. The other part of it is I do think it's much more challenging to get the sort of data you're getting for driving cars, which you can just passively collect. That's much harder. I do think there's going to be technological developments around imitation learning, which outside of this virtual reality world, which is more explicit and direct data, is just feed. I really do think in the future you're going to have feed Optimus clips, literally YouTube clips of someone else doing the task. And there's been enough transfer learning of that they should be able to do enough transfer learning of how to take 3D perspective of someone else doing a task and calculate the kinematics needed for it to do the task and recreate it. And then you have a ton of data. So the real question is how do you get Optimus? You don't need AGI, but how do you get it to understand what the task is? It can recreate the kinematics, say someone picking up an egg, but how do you get it to understand that the egg is the goal? And I think you can do that through image segmentation and understanding that way. So I think there's a lot of technologies that will help. I don't have a clear answer, but I just get the sense from that sort of ideas that the data needed will be much less than for Robotaxi for multiple reasons.
You could have said that in 10 words. Inflexity, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm not going to go into the research part of this, but anyways, I'm just going to give you an example that in I think 2008 or 2012, anyways, either of the a Stanford student, he went out, he took a table, he attached I think 2 arms to it, and then he gathered around 10 hours of data of 10 hours of data of humans doing laundry, and then he took the clips from YouTube and then he trained the model on the 10 hours of clips. After the 10 hours of clips, they were able to autonomously fold the clothes, take them out of the hamper, and fold the clothes themselves. So, anyways, it was in 2012 that you needed 10 hours of data. As it gets better, you will need less data for each particular task, but you need more data for general tasks.
Machine.
Yeah, just keep in mind there's already plenty of robots working in the world in different settings. They're just more fixed robots and generally more fixed tasks, but they're not exactly perfect. And so these are already working. Optimus obviously is another level in terms of task variability, and even within specific tasks, there's probably going to be more variability. But it's not like you're starting from scratch here.
What'd you think of the two Optimus moving autonomously, doing tasks autonomously?
I'm sorry, I missed that. You're talking about Tesla mentioning that they're, it's totally possible. And we've talked about this before, that there's going to be certain jobs in a factory that are achievable for Optimus to do, even if it's moving slowly or slowly picking up batteries like they demo videoed. I don't know exactly what it's doing. We can speculate. It sounds nice. I'm sure it's not actually that impressive. But that just shows you, I think, that even if it's not impressive, it can do something useful. And at some point, it's going to be able to take away a job. So that's good. And I keep going back to the example of Tesla having that worker who has to go feed metal to a different industrial robot, and they have to stay in the safe gated area. And I'm just waiting for when Optimus takes over that job. It obviously requires better balance, but that's just sort of job that I think, it's not, we don't need years of data collection for it to be able to do that. It just needs a better walking ability.
All right. Jimmy, do you still believe the economy is headed towards stagnation?
To an extent, yes, I do.
Stagflation.
Stagflation, yes. We've been talking about that for quite a while. My view of this is very simple. I don't see inflation going down anytime soon. I don't see American growth increasing substantially anytime soon either.
So what did you think of today's CPI data then?
CPI data is super good, guys. Always is going to be good. It's always on plan, always on track. But the Federal Reserve has always been saying inflation's been low. But why is it that things cost more all the time, much more than we ever expect, and much more than inflation, the official headline numbers are ever suggesting? Prices seem to double every 10 years. And it comes to a point where you really wonder, 10 bars of gold would buy you a house in the 1940s, and 10 bars of gold would still buy you a house today. The price of gold has gone up 15x. So there you go.
That's not what the Fed said at all. The Fed didn't say inflation's been great. The Fed's still not even saying inflation's great. So he's just making shit up.
Yeah, this is why I only ask him about geopolitics. And then after that, we got to move him down promptly. Dennis Rafaelov, I see this is your first time speaking. Is that correct?
Yep, correct.
It was a really good question, Optimus. How long have you been in Tesla?
As an investor?
Yeah, as an investor or as a fan, customer?
Yeah, in the past 2 years, pretty much.
Oh, okay. So you came into the stock when 2021, 2022.
Yep.
Was it primarily because of Optimus?
No, not at all. I've just once I've seen actually FSD got me into Tesla most. Like once I've seen the videos of how good it is, and then I started looking into Tesla overall, like how they're building the cars and what kind of technologies they're using, and I really got into it. And now I'm a huge fan.
Okay, good.
Yeah, 100% of my portfolio is in Tesla.
Oh wow! Okay, all in.
Yeah.
Uzi?
Yeah, I was wondering about the data collection with Optimus. Is there like a hive mind sort of dynamic?
Machine?
I missed the question. Is there a what dynamic?
Hive mind?
For all the Optimists? I don't understand the question.
Like, would all the Optimists be sharing, I guess, data or I don't know if it's experience or data all the time?
I don't expect them to share it in real time, but I expect the cloud to maintain the models, and they're going to upload their information. There might be some, like Robotaxi, there's generally no online learning, or not much, in each car, right? But then all the data is collected and aggregated and trained on and deployed on all the vehicles. The same can be done for Optimus. You could have some online learning or adaptation to the models, and then that feedback be sent back to the cloud. I don't know if I expect direct communication. I don't know. That's not my area of expertise. So I'm not sure what you mean by hive mind, though. Like
fleet learning. I mean, he's talking about fleet learning. That's the correct term.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's some other I expect the data to be shared for sure.
Yeah. Why wouldn't that be the case, right? Complexity.
Well, I gotta say, I'm an AI developer. That helps, like, some background. But when it comes to Optimus, first of all, because unlike cars, we're talking about literally training the robots. The beginning is going to be people trying over and over again stuff like folding laundry, moving blocks, or whatever. Now, once you do that, here comes the beauty of software. Once you have one copy, you have access to it, you can apply it to every single device that is compatible with it. So let's say you have a network, right? You have 1 million Optimus all over the US. You take that, have some chip on it for Wi-Fi, and you can get updates with these feedback.
Scorpion, new speakers are limited to asking questions in 10 words or fewer.
Got it.
What's your question?
Nothing. I thought it was more of an open conversation. Sorry.
No, it's not an open conversation. This is not a democracy. It's a dictatorship in here.
Yeah. Who had asked the question earlier? The Hive mind one.
Machine.
I have a question. Is one of these speakers Pedro Almodovar? No one gets that.
No, I didn't get that. Pedro who? Anyway, Complexity, and then Aisha.
Yeah, so this is for the one whoever asked the Hive mind question. If I got the point that they were trying to make. Anyways, so I think they were referring to digital twin technology. So within a factory itself, when you deploy a fleet of humanoid robots, you would have them connected to a digital brain, a sort of digital brain, which is basically NVIDIA Omniverse. But Tesla is going to do inference at the robot level itself. So the inference won't be in the cloud, but at the same time, they will be sharing the location data, the data of the factory line running real time, so that the fleet of robots can manage the tasks autonomously rather than a human having to interfere and plan how a robot is going to do what at what time and where. So they will have the machines interlinked to each other, which is basically called the digital twin of the factory.
Machine.
Actually, I changed my mind. I don't think there's going to be any hive mind learning. By the time Optimus is in production, there's not going to be any more bees in the world.
Machine, when do you think Optimus is going to enter production? Let me ask you in this way. When do you think Tesla will produce the 10,000th Optimus?
Well, definitely in 2026, if not earlier. So the question is 2026 or 2025. And
really?
I mean, it's not that hard to build them. You build a production line. You don't think they're going to have them in 2026?
What do you think they're going to build? 3 months?
Well, I don't know. I'd have to think about that. I mean,
that is a very aggressive. That's a very aggressive prediction. Omar, don't you think they would? Do you think? Why would my mom say that? That makes no sense. Are you guys talking economics? Aisha.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to go back to the hive mind topic for a moment. So there's a lot of speculation on robotics specifically, conjuring a hive mind, but the intelligence would come from the data centers. So Optimus, or each individual Optimus, is just a proctor. So for it to theoretically achieve hive mind, which would be comparable to AGI, I think that we're several years out on that, to say the least.
Omar, don't you think they would be building them in Fremont, not Giga Texas, because that's where our AI headquarters are?
No, Texas is a better place to manufacture them.
Danny.
So one day, the Optimus could actually drive a Honda Civic.
So you're talking about a futuristic future with robots that are as smart as humans, and there's still Honda Civics around?
Yeah, I mean, let's say I have a Honda Civic and I buy Optimus so it can FSD my car and do chores for me around the house, and I don't have to buy a new car. Maybe.
Chansu.
Yeah, quick question about Optimus hands. One thing I think it's a little bit tricky in terms of sensors is the, let's say humans will know, can feel, like, let's say if its surface is like wet or grease, for example. How could they do sensor that, aside from vision? And there's a pressure sensors, but how can you censor like wetness or like greasiness?
Machine.
Well, first of all, I'm surprised Chansu did not ask when will Optimus be walking the streets of Toronto, like he constantly spammed Elon Musk for a year. But to his actual question, I would say not that it's cost effective, but if you had literally a strain gauge, aka load cell that measures force on your fingertips, kind of like humans have, then this thing can measure both the normal force, which is the outward force or inward force toward the finger, and then the tangential force, which is kind of how much friction there is. And so when you press down on a surface, let's say it has oil on it, and to a certain force, and then you start moving laterally, you would expect a certain amount of resistance. But if there's oil, it's going to be much less. So they can use that in their algorithms when they wouldn't have to. This is just deep learning, right? To figure out what the level of friction is.
Complexity. And then Nathaniel.
Again, so this question actually comes back to the point that I was making earlier about the digital twin technology. So first of all, if you deploy a fleet of robots to manage let's say a factory, let's say Giga Texas, for example, let's say that there is a production line for each part and you want to make sure that there is quality control and maybe a battery is not oiled up. So you wouldn't actually deploy it on a specific robot. You would place the sensor on the machinery that the battery cell is going to pass through and detect at that spot, and that data will be transferred to the robot in real time and it will remove it from the production line. That's what the twin technology was made for, and that is how it will be used in the factory.
Nathaniel.
Hey, how's it going?
What's your question?
I don't have a question. It's just my first time in the space. I got 48.
First-time speakers are limited to asking questions, 10 words or fewer. While you formulate your question, Malik, go ahead. Malik, you may unmute yourself and go ahead. Machine.
I have a question for Nathaniel. His profile claims to be Elon's health coach, and I have to inform him, unfortunately, that's me. You're wrong.
He also says, obsessed with 4680 batteries, arrival robot. Interesting. Malik Nayar, you have to unmute yourself for us to hear you. All right. Machine.
How are you feeling going into the 48 hours before we find out about the compensation plan? I assume we'd find out by Friday, right? Would it be Thursday night?
No,
Well,
they
they're
would
gonna
announce it at
announce
the meeting.
Yeah.
So how are you feeling about it?
I continue to think it's going to pass with a slim margin. And, even if it doesn't, there's a plan B, plan C, etc. I'm sure, but I think it's going to be a long road. I think it's going to be a long road. There's going to be a lot of uncertainty, of bumps and ups and downs in the meantime, I suspect. A lot of legalese involved in every step of the way. So it doesn't really matter how I'm feeling about it, Wish we had more color on how Elon's feeling about all this.
It does matter because you're emotionally unstable, and I fear for the listeners of the space if you become unhinged. So that's why I'm checking in, not for you personally, just for everyone else.
Well, thank you, or I think for other people. Aisha.
You guys are amazing. I was going to say the same thing. It almost feels like Elon is stressed regardless of the outcome. I expect it to clear, but it almost seems like Elon has like a burden there once it clears.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
It's wild. I mean, just can't put yourself in a situation where your boss calls you in and says, Omar just said something. Yeah. We're gonna go over Ark Invest's model in a second, but just put yourself in a situation where for the last 5 years you've been busting your ass, and your boss calls you in and says, we're gonna take back the 5 years of salary and bonus and whatever you got paid for that period, even though you did a great job. It's so funny, tragically funny. And honestly, like, more importantly, is this has got to have some impact on people who are looking to found their own companies and become entrepreneurs and work hard. And this unfairness, I think, has to have some impact on the rest of the population, the younger generations. Machine.
I don't really agree with that last point, just because I think this is very specific to Musk. I don't think people think all of a sudden they start up a company and the court of Delaware is going to take away their money. Maybe if they're a multi-billionaire, then maybe they'll take away some of their money. So I don't get that point. I do think, yeah, for sure, Musk felt like he had this money and then he didn't, and that sucks for him. I also felt like I had more money and then I didn't when Musk started selling all his shares. So yeah, that sucked too. So you just got to get over it at some point and stop eating Popeyes, which Musk clearly is doing, and get in shape. And we have Nathaniel, excuse me, is here, ready, Musk, to help you.
All right. Let's see. Hirsch, do you have a point? 1 second, Hirsch.
CNBC reported today that the shareholder vote results might be announced by the end of the day. Is that a possibility?
Omar?
The end of the day today?
That's what they said.
I don't think so. I think they would wait until the meeting. That's when they've typically announced it. If they did announce it today, it would be the first time that they've ever done that. And again, people are still allowed to vote at the meeting itself. So I'm not sure how they would give the final tally when voting hasn't concluded.
Seems like CNBC was off. That's weird.
CNBC was wrong about something? Oh my God.
Hold on.
Shocker.
Okay, we're gonna go through the hands, and then we're gonna switch to the Ark Invest model. We have 45 minutes. Okay, Uzi, and then Bull 2035.
I'm on Elon's mental state. I missed machine. It cut out probably, but I'd say, are we still on that?
No, we'll move that. Aisha.
Did you guys follow Patrick Bet-David's statement on it?
No, what did he say?
Oh, here, let me post it.
No, you don't have to post it. Just say it.
It's a lot, but he had the best perspective on why Elon deserves the compensation. So like with what you were saying, he put himself in Elon's shoes, you know, this is what I expect, this is what contractually we agreed on, and then you you know, you come to find that you can't attain the results even though you've achieved those milestones.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Bull 2035.
Yeah, just quick clarification on CNBC. What they said is that the institutions may announce today. They did not say we will know the vote until tomorrow. That's tomorrow at the meeting.
Thank you. Omar?
Yeah, so I don't really care about talking about Ark Invest's model that much. I mean, my Robotaxi is worth $10 trillion, whatever, we've heard it before. I don't think it's particularly relevant, but what I did think was interesting was Elon's comment. And he said, I'm curious to read this. The more I think about robotaxis and humanoid robots, the more absurd the valuation becomes. Does this sound to you like a guy who's getting ready to leave the company tomorrow? I don't think so. So I think that as we get this behind us, people will realize that the level of drama and the level of materiality are far apart. And of course, we need to sort of talk about it, get everyone to vote, whatever, maybe scare people a little bit. But what's really material is what he's talking about here, the Optimus and FSD valuation. And I don't think this is actually going to be the end of the company.
All right. So do you not want to talk about it?
I mean, what is there to talk about?
I just want to look at these underlying assumptions while we have machine on the board too. So they had a bear outcome, bull outcome, assumptions, gross margin. Machine, did you look at it?
Nope.
Let's kind of like, let's do. Let me ask about specific assumptions. Percent of simulations indicating first year of Tesla's robotaxi commercialization. They say, and Klami Yupa, Michael, sent this to the speaker group chat. Basically, no chance that robotaxi service won't start by the end of 2027. Did you see that part?
I haven't looked at this at all, so I haven't seen any part.
All right.
Just keep in mind that
just entertain me for a second here. Sawyer posted this too. I pinned it at the top. Okay, just look at this chart right here, because this is really where the crux of their valuation is coming from. This assumption right here. All right. We believe that Tesla will launch a robotaxi service within the next 2 years, and that the probability of Tesla fails to launch a robotaxi service within 5 years is de minimis, as shown below. What do you think about this assumption?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's just their assumption. Percent of simulations and all that is they just defined geometric distribution and calculated out these distributions for each year. And if I looked at them and said, first year of Tesla robotaxi commercialization, like, do they just mean 110 cars? What is their threshold for counting as it first? So I would say in 2025, I do expect some amount of cars to be robotaxis for Tesla. It may not be that many, right? I mean, this is what I was predicting a year or two ago, right? As I said, around this time, I think they'll have the capability of having a robotaxi somewhere. But it really matters how many and the scaling up of the volume. So there's still, I don't have enough information to say that those numbers are good or bad. I would say if I was looking at, how long would it take to have 100,000 robotaxis in operation? I might think the probability should be higher for 2026 and a bit higher for 2027 and lower for 2025. I don't know if they're going to have really many robotaxis next year. They don't even have the robotaxi vehicle in production yet. So then you're relying on these already built cars. And
Yeah.
I just don't see that.
So
So
the other thing, the other assumption they have is autonomous ride-hail revenue. Okay. For 2029, the bear case is 600 billion. The bull case is close to $1 trillion. So somewhere between 600 billion to $1 trillion of revenue in 2029 from autonomous ride-hailing revenue, and the gross margin is 56%, 53%. Any thoughts on that?
So I have to calculate this out. The bear case is how much revenue?
The bear case. The bear outcome is $600 billion of revenue from ride-hailing alone in 2029.
600 billion. Okay. Give me a sec. I'll respond in a second.
Let's bring a bear in here. Not that we have any more bears on this conversation, but Grant.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good to look at the history of Ark's predictions here. I think if you look back in 2021, they were saying 300 billion of, robotaxi revenue in 2025. I mean, like, I kind of agree with Omar. These are kind of just not valuable forecasts. Typically, it does represent the absolute best possible scenario, but their bear cases are likely not going to happen.
I mean, the bear case for Robotaxi is 0, right? It's that they actually don't produce something competitive.
Exactly.
So, it is a little bit silly.
Machine, did you do your back of the envelope calculation? Man, this is like the anti-machine forecast, because they also say, we assume that Optimus will have minimal impact on our price target. Over the next decade, we expect Tesla to become a leading manufacturer and service provider of robots that move through physical space, as it will have the opportunity to leverage learnings from robotaxis as well as in-house inference chips, training, compute, and manufacturing scale. Tesla expects Optimus to be completing useful factory tasks by year-end, assuming that you were able to subsume 10 to 20% of Tesla's labor hours worked productivity equal to twice of the human counterparts. Optimus could save Tesla $3 to $4 billion, or 1 to 2% manufacturing costs in 2029. So he's all in on robotaxis. Machine says Optimus is more important, is sooner, and it's not a given that robotaxi will generate any sort of revenue or profits. Machine.
All right, I just did a quick back on the napkin math. If I would assume in 2029 that at best they have 10 million capable robotaxis available for a fleet. And I think that's optimistic that they would scale up the robotaxi vehicle that much, and that many of the existing fleet could even be, if any of them could be available. So if I assume 10 million cars, and then you take what Uber drivers say they drive per day, for let's say about 200 miles a day, and for them that maybe only part of that is actual revenue generating. I don't know, but if I assume 200 miles a day, then, and I assume $1 per mile in revenue, and I do that for a full year, then I'm getting around their bear case. And I think So they're on the same order of magnitude, but to me, that's more optimistic case than the bear case is 600 billion in revenue. A bear case would be a real bear case would be much less than 600 billion in revenue in 2029. So that's ridiculous modeling if that's their lower end.
Omar.
Yeah, it's interesting when you look at the Waymo recall from today over the incident in Phoenix where they crashed into a telephone pole. You would think this is fairly basic object detection for LiDAR, but because the telephone pole was on the road rather than on the sidewalk, and the HD map didn't properly mark it as an off-road area, that tiny little, few inches mistake resulted in the Waymo crashing into the telephone pole when it was trying to pull over. So the system, while it is progress that we have driverless vehicles now that you can take for the first time, that's definitely awesome. When you just evaluate it from a business perspective, nobody's making $1 on driverless cars today, right? So this could be a very challenging problem, right? Really getting the software to understand at a human level what is happening. What we've been seeing so far in the driverless realm is quite dependent on highly accurate mapping that tells the car where it can go and where it can't go. So when we start to see companies really making money from driverless, then we can say, okay, now we can actually start to model the growth of this business because there is a business. Today, it's still more of a experiment in many cases than an actual business. And I think really in the near term, the market is for ADAS and supervised autonomy. And that is the only area where people are actually making money. So, I mean, it's hard to really say for sure what the pace of the build out of this business is going to be and what the economics really look like at this point. But they're kind of just throwing some numbers in a spreadsheet, and who knows, maybe they will get closer than most people. But it's difficult to really evaluate a model like this and have much confidence in what they're predicting at all. Like, their little slide where they say, oh, 0.03% chance by 2027 it is an ounce. I mean, where is this coming from exactly? So yeah, I don't know.
Grant, how does it feel to not be the most bearish person on the board?
I was actually going to say I appreciate Omar's fair-mindedness there. I mean, it's good to think of these things in terms of probabilities. And the one thing I'd highlight is that, we can certainly disagree on the percentage probability, but it's a non-zero probability that Tesla never produces an L4 robotaxi, or at least, the existing fleet is not going to be able to become an L4 robotaxi, and potentially whatever gets unveiled in August isn't a, L4 robotaxi. Maybe, I'm sure at some point, but it's just good to keep in mind that, a bear case of 600 billion of robotaxi revenue is kind of comical.
We had a question from Ranger the Dog in YouTube live chat for Machine. And I think Machine saw that question and left. So we're going to keep that question when he comes back. Grant.
I'm just curious if people have price predictions depending on the outcome of the vote.
That's a good question. Omar, what do you think?
It's hard to know, but my expectation is that the price action will be positive, regardless of the outcome of the vote. There does seem to be a significant cloud over the name. Everyone from bulls to bears, they're looking at this event. The market obviously hates uncertainty. I think they've kind of been pricing in the worst. But yeah, a bad outcome conceivably could lead to a sharp drop in the stock. If, for example, Elon's compensation plan is voted down, Musk starts crying on stage. He throws down the microphone and storms off stage and says, "Find a new CEO, you assholes." Then I would expect the price action to be negative. But if the meeting commences normally, as I expect, they give an update on the company and his plan either gets approved or doesn't get approved, but he says he's going to stay, then I would expect the price action to be positive. You're just having a lot of people who don't want to buy going into this because of the uncertainty of the vote. And everybody who wants to buy, they're waiting until after this. So that's why I think there will be a little bit of a relief in the name after.
All right, we're going to go to Nathaniel Luce, and then I'm going to ask Omar for any updates on 12.4.1 and also Cybertruck. Nathaniel, go ahead.
Hey, yeah, just to reply to your question earlier, the Elon's health coach thing is kind of a joke because every time he posts about Ozempic, I try and give him some alternatives. So it's just a lighthearted joke. But anyways, my question earlier was, what's one of your favorite Tesla technologies? Mine was the 4680 battery. And yeah, I don't really have a price target, but my son did some work on a film set, and we have his money in a trust, so we're hoping to get his first share soon. He's 8 months old.
That's awesome. Thanks, and good luck with it, Nathaniel. My favorite technology with Tesla is FSD, hands down right now. So focused on that.
How is your 8-month-old son feeling going into the vote tomorrow? Is he nervous?
Yeah, did you ask him?
Well, he helped me vote our shares last week. So we voted siding basically on all positions with whatever the board recommended because, nice. Unlike OpenAI, the Tesla board isn't corrupt. So I kind of trust them and their judgment, and hopefully, his compensation plan can go through the stupid corrupt Delaware court, and they can finally be like fully incorporated in the state of Texas, which would be sick. But on my proxyvote.com, it said that I didn't get the confirmation number yet, but it's been at least almost a week now.
Interesting. All right, thank you. Luce. Is it Luce or Luce or?
It's Luce. Thanks for asking.
Luce. Okay, sure.
So I wanted to say that in my opinion, Ark's valuation, it's way more accurate than what you say, or what you guys say. So first of all, considering FSD, it's by 2028, the chances of Robotaxi not being commercialized are extremely low. And this is the main point on which their valuation is based. So I think you are too much based on their last, their track record. In my opinion, they are way closer than you think. If you think about that, they are very. In my opinion,
let me ask you this: do you think, first of all, where are you from?
I'm from Italy.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Luce. Rome or another part?
Rome. Yeah. Center of Italy. Yeah, good job.
Nice.
Oh,
nice. My brother went to La Sapienza.
Yeah.
Anyway, what was I going to say? Oh, when do you think we'll have, let's say, the 1,000th Tesla Robotaxi in commercial operations, giving customers rides? 1,000.
2025.
Oh, coffee bet.
No,
We have a
yeah.
coffee bet. That's a coffee bet.
It all depends on FSD. Like it all depends on if 12.5.
Well, yeah, that's part of the question.
It only depends on that. Like it only depends on that. And if the next version is really next level, then everybody will believe that in 2025 Robotaxi is being commercialized.
Okay.
And the opinion can change like in one update.
Are you using your hands as you're talking?
Yeah.
Yes. Me too. Can we have a coffee bet for the end of 2025? I don't think the 1,000th Robotaxi will be in operation in 2025. Are you ready for a coffee bet? Your first coffee bet?
I don't know what it is, but sure.
Coffee bet. Come on, you know what coffee is. You're in Italy.
Yeah,
A
coffee.
bet. You know what a coffee is. You know what a bet is. If I win, you get me coffee. If you win, I get you coffee.
Sure. Okay.
All right. I'll put the coffee bet in there while Grant talks.
Yeah, I was going to actually offer up a coffee bet too, but before I did, I wanted to say I think that a lot of the language I hear from the bull camp is that it would be insane for people to vote against their interests if they hold stock in Tesla. But I do think it's worth highlighting that a lot of people may have voted before, the established date, but may have chosen to sell. I do think that there may be a larger cohort of folks inside of the shareholder base who maybe didn't get in 2019, who maybe bought in 2021, 22, who are probably a little frustrated with Elon's antics and some of the things that he's done that probably reflect negatively on the brand in a very public facing fashion. So I am just completely going out on a limb here, but I think that there's a decent chance it fails to pass and would take a coffee bet with someone on it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a close call. I'm not willing to make a coffee bet. I was actually a little kind of surprised by 22nd Night's call. Did you read that, Grant?
Whose call? Sorry.
Bernstein analyst Tony Sacconaghi.
I did see it. I didn't read the full paper.
I think he's the only one to come out and say, he's the only analyst I think to come out and say this vote is not going to pass, or is unlikely to pass. He said, when everybody else is thinking likely to pass.
He's been pretty bearish on Tesla for a while. I mean, we'll see.
All right, Andre.
Yeah, the vote has a chance of passing, chance of not passing. But the one thing I wanted to say is something dawned on me the other day is that we're all expecting that regulations is going to be the slow part. But as Lucia was saying, that I don't think it's going to be regulations. It's going to be FSD itself. Why not? Because I think small cities and counties that don't currently have a reliable Uber service will jump at the fact that they can, one, buy these robotaxis and operate them in the city and generate revenue from them, and providing this versatile public transportation to their residents. So this is going to be an opportunity like no other for all these small ones. So I think regulatory approval is going to be much, much quicker from smaller counties and cities and so forth. Anyways,
my problem is not regulatory approval. My problem is not regulatory approval.
Yeah, I think it's FSD itself. Yeah.
Okay, Lucia, do you agree with the bets at the top?
I don't know how much it is a coffee bet.
Just a couple. I mean, it doesn't really matter whether it's more like bragging rights kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. Like
yeah.
I want. So FSD gets better with computing power, and computing power is only now ramping up. It's going to ramp out.
No, I understand. I understand the argument, but do you agree with the wording of the bet at the top?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. Brandon.
Yeah, just on what Grant said. I mean, if you're talking about retail shareholders, Elon said, I don't know, 4 or 5 days ago that 90% of them voted yes for his compensation package. And then a lot of these institutions held many shares prior to the first vote. And if they bought more shares since, they still have both of those to look at. So I would say that I don't know how we're going to be pissed because of the stock kind of stagflation over the last few years, but retail shareholders seem to be happy.
Lauren.
Hey, in terms of the coffee bet, I would certainly take the other side of a coffee bet about the shareholder vote. And I would go so far as to say that I would bet it's going to be, quote, landslide, which I would define as over 70% in favor when it comes out. I think people are way misinterpreting how involved the board and everyone is. And they're trying to get out record turnout, and they're very confident that it's going to pass in a landslide. And they want to send a very strong message to the Delaware judge that just how in favor of this shareholders are.
Grant.
Yeah, I don't tend to trust a lot of things Elon says. It's worth mentioning he didn't indicate if it was the number of shareholders or the number of shares. I do think that there's probably a little bit of a imbalance there. Like I'm thinking of, there's different people that make up the retail shareholder base of Tesla. There are going to be some folks that are like boomers that got in 21 who are just like, fuck this shit. Like there's going to be people like the folks
Grant,
in this
you
space.
cannot curse. You can't curse in this space. Yeah, cursing in this space. YouTube is on my back again. Demonetizes content. I know you don't care about that, Grant. I know you're very selfish and you want to look cool by cursing, but that's not allowed. Inflexity.
Yeah, so what I would just say is that we had another analyst from Guggenheim come out today, and he too said that it is most likely going to pass. And he said that if it doesn't pass, in the event it doesn't pass, he said that he expects a fall of around $50 following a no vote. Anyways, I just wanted to throw that out.
Okay. Musical notes, go ahead. Musical note, go ahead. Looks like musical note is having a connection issue. Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering if anyone thinks other Tesla segments will one day surpass the automotive sales.
Yes.
Which one?
Optimus.
Ben?
All right, yeah. Why Optimus?
Ben, let me ask you something. You are a first-time speaker, is that right?
Yeah,
Are you long or short Tesla?
long. I've been adding since October.
Okay, cool. I think Optimus has a very large total addressable market, don't you think?
Yeah, I didn't know if like the supercharging or like energy storage. I don't know if that had potential to.
So supercharging, I think, we never really assigned much value to supercharging profits, especially in this space. I think supercharging is something that Tesla had to do because no one else was doing it. It was very essential to the mission. You have to have supercharging network. But I think today, others can take on installation of the superchargers, and Tesla can manufacture and send it to them. So that's has kind of taken a back burner, being put on the back burner. Energy storage, great product, very profitable, but there seems to be bottlenecks, especially when you're trying to connect them to the grid. So I think Tesla is growing. Maybe Tesla Energy seems to be growing a little slower than Tesla had anticipated in previous years when they were talking about on earnings calls and stuff. And also, in China, especially CATL, BYD, etc., have their own products. So I'm not sure how big energy storage is going to get in the future. We'll see. And robotaxis are important, obviously. You specifically asked about auto sales. So I think robotaxis would also be a potential higher than auto sales kind of revenue for your question. But I think Optimus is the one that's really going to drive the company's future valuation, which is really interesting because Ark Invest said Optimus doesn't move is not a material for their forecast. They're very much focused on robotaxis. So maybe we can dig into a little bit more later. Andre?
Yeah, I think Ark Invest is being just a bit more scoped in their projections just to be on the safer side, because the robotaxis is an easier metric to measure. Optimus is a lot harder. But yeah, I think 5 to 10 years, the biggest drivers is going to be
So
robotaxis.
why is Optimus harder to measure than robotaxis?
Economic impact of Optimus, I mean, given that the question is whether humanoid bots will replace automated factories with special built machines, right? So, for example, there's a lot of things that humanoid bots cannot replace, including, for example, gigacasting and so forth. So, specialized lines will always outperform humanoid bots, but the question is if general purpose robotics is a better kind of overall economic input. For stuff like chefs, I think it is. For a lot of factory tasks that are human occupied today, I think it is. But the convergence of simplification of the manufacturing processes and the product being manufactured versus like just speed of manufacturing, I think it's harder to predict. Robotaxis are easier to predict. So I think Ark Invest just scope down, focus on something that is more concrete, more specifics, because I mean they are being grand in what they're describing as it is. But I do agree. I do think in about 10-year time, Optimus has a good chance of being the number one driver. The interesting thing is, I expect Tesla to continue ramping up its compute capacity and obviously battery storage and solar. I don't know if battery storage and solar will ever truly be dominant, but compute capacity, if it continues ramping it up, it has a good chance of 15, 20 years, simply because just with Dojo and all the investments, if they continue ramping them up, given that problems like FSD has a notion of like solvability, right? So right now we need heavy compute to catch up to a solvable state of FSD. Afterwards, we just need upkeep compute instead of catch-up compute. So the more you invest now, the more you'll have sitting idle in the future. So I assume it's going to be applied to other tasks like Optimus, other training, and so forth. But at some point, I think it'll be given to the market.
Omar, do you agree with all that?
Kind of, maybe. I mean, yeah, I think, yeah, I guess I kind of agree with some parts, disagree with some other parts.
Yeah. Yeah, one reason they say Ark says that they didn't put in a model is because commercialization is going to take longer than 5 years, and they only have a 5-year forecast period, which is, you can make it a 10-year forecast period if you really care about Optimus. So there's no such thing as your DCF model has to be 5-year forecast period. Yeah, questionable forecasting
It is
methods.
unclear when it gets good enough on the software front to be useful as a product.
Yeah, I mean, you can say the same about FSD being good enough to be used for robotaxis too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I mean, Optimus is much like FSD, but just generalizing the problem even more from being able to automate driving to being able to automate anything. So, you need even further leaps in AI to get there. But, we can argue about it, but nobody really knows. Is it going to take 5 years? Is it going to take 2 years? Is it going to take 10 years? It's, just something we can speculate about, but that nobody can really know.
Okay. Any thoughts on 12.4.1? Any updates?
Yeah, I've been loving it. I gave these two German guys a ride yesterday, and they were just blown away. We did, I think, 3 different drives, and they were all zero intervention. And, so I was in San Jose. I was watching some Apple executives speak, and I got on the highway afterwards. The Model 3 performance is just incredible. Just launch onto 280. You can go like 100 miles an hour. It feels like nothing. And then you just push a button, go hands free. And I told the car, drive me back to San Francisco at 85 miles an hour. It drove there. The road was mostly empty. Anytime it came on a car, it just went around it smoothly and elegantly without batting an eye, without slowing down. And it was completely hands free. I just sat there. And then it got into San Francisco, and it just continued driving through San Francisco. It turned onto Market Street. It turned onto Franklin. It's going up some crazy hills. And it took me all the way to my apartment without me having to touch the steering wheel once and without any modifications needed to achieve that. It's just a stock car, just out of the box. It's hands free. It really is incredible to push a button and let go, and your car just takes you where you want to go. So, I mean, this is really an uber revolutionary product, especially combined with the purpose-built robotaxi. And everyone's kind of lost sight of that because, I mean, it's, you know, it's just kind of ridiculous. People have forgotten, right? They've forgotten all of the lessons that we learned over the past few years, where, you saw GM cancel their EV program in the early 2000s. Then EVs were a huge success. They all got back in. Now they're sort of pulling out again. They're saying hybrids are the answer. And people have really forgot those insights that became clear to us during that period. And everyone's focused on the drama of the share vote and this and that. And they've missed the fact that we really have an incredibly disruptive product here today. And I think scaling it around the world this year, people are just going to be blown away when they go from the 5-year-old basic autopilot to this new system, which is hands-free self-driving in city streets and highways. Nobody else has that, right? And you've seen people say, okay, well, anyone can make EVs. Well, nobody's making EVs profitably. These Chinese companies are getting state subsidies behind the back door in different ways, cheap land, loans, suppliers, that kind of stuff. And you look at Waymo and they're heavily dependent on mapping. I really think it's not well understood how important Tesla is. And I think you look at the near term revenue generating abilities of OpenAI versus Tesla, and I think Tesla is actually greater. I just read that OpenAI did less than $3 billion in revenue last year. So Autopilot and FSD is already actually a bigger business than OpenAI. And I think it's actually going to continue to grow faster. And I find it to be much more impressive than OpenAI and these LLMs we see in many ways because, these models are not that reliable and nobody expects them to be. We just accept that they're going to hallucinate or BS or just make things up. I've never seen an AI system like this where they've actually driven the reliability so far that you can trust it to drive you 85 miles an hour up 280 from San Jose to San Francisco, and it does that without any intervention, and you're not surprised. You know it. And on top of that, everything is running on device on their own custom silicon, not in the cloud. I think this is just so underappreciated, and they're really undervalued by, I think trillions of dollars are going to be added to their market cap, and that's why I have a position that's so large even going into this vote. I think it's going to be just extremely disruptive, and people have forgotten it. They were just caught up in all the negative sentiment. Oh, I don't like Elon. He bought Twitter. He's posting political things I disagree with. This or that. The stock hasn't done well. And all this negativity and drama around the vote has really clouded something magical here with FSD 1241. And I think probably by Friday, we're going to have another build that's going to start rolling out to more people. So not everybody, but start expanding out to more users. And then I think a week after that, we'll have 11.43, and I think that one will be ready to go wide. And let me tell you, the hands-free FSD combined with a significantly better driving model, people are going to be blown away. I don't think I can really do justice to it. When you experience your car driving you around hands-free, and it's zero intervention almost all the time, I mean, I think people's tweets will speak for themselves when that happens.
Thank you, Omar. Very positive note. So we have a couple of minutes left before we go to Patreon for the after party. Any specific predictions, like off the ball predictions, for tomorrow? Do you think Elon's gonna cry on the stage?
I don't think he's going to cry on the stage. I think tomorrow is going to be a turning point. It's going to be a rallying point. Everybody has gotten so nervous about this vote, which actually is a non-binding vote that doesn't actually matter all that much in the grand scheme of things, that they've forgotten that the rest of the event is usually fun, right? They give an update on the company, they give you details. They're going to be talking about the purpose-built Robotaxi. They're going to be talking about new car models. They're going to be talking about various things that they're doing. There's going to be a lot of interesting information. It's going to be fun. Any information that we get on the Robotaxi or FSD or training compute or Dojo or 4680 or any of these things is going to be extremely interesting. So I expect it to be sort of a rallying point. I mean, this is kind of a very powerful emotional moment here where it feels like the entire company is hanging into the balance. And it's really brought out a lot of people. I think we're going to have record turnout here who are really standing up and saying, hey, no, we need this company. I love this company and we need it to succeed. And I think we're going to have, the shareholder proposals at the beginning, and that's going to take some time. But once we get past that and get back into the meat of what actually matters, the actual company update, I think it's going to be a lot of exciting news that they have to share, particularly about some of the new vehicles they're developing and the progress of FSD and Optimus.
Thank you, Omar. All right. Time for the after party for patrons, the link to which is at the top of their screens. Thank you very much, everybody, and I will talk to you next time.